Sometimes a single moment changes everything you thought you knew about being human. When that research facility exploded in downtown Seattle, no one expected to find survivors among the twisted metal and ash. But there she was, a young woman, with a face so damaged it broke the hearts of the rescue workers who found her. Ava Marlowe was walking in circles 3 miles from the blast, speaking in whispers about places that didn't exist. She should have died instantly. Instead, the doctors discovered something that shook them to their core. Strange technology was embedded deep in her bones devices, decades ahead of anything they'd ever seen. Her DNA was already logged in secret government files. The more they learned, the more questions arose. What was she really doing at that lab? Why could she remember experiments that were supposed to be impossible? But the most chilling discovery was yet to come. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Asterisk. Dr. Elena Vasquez had seen enough trauma in her 23 years as a surgeon to believe she understood the limits of human endurance. The sterile halls of Seattle Military Medical Center had witnessed her steady hands guide countless patients back from the brink of death, each case teaching her something new about resilience and fragility. But nothing had prepared her for the woman lying in room 247, behind reinforced glass and armed guards who never seemed to blink. The rescue workers' report sat on her desk like an accusation against logic itself. According to the hastily scrawled notes, Ava Marlowe had been found at 11:47 p.m., 3 miles southeast of the Meridian Research Facility explosion. The blast had registered 4.2 on seismic monitors, leveling 6 city blocks and leaving a crater where a cutting-edge laboratory once stood. Every structural engineer agreed that nothing could have survived within a 2-mile radius of ground zero. Yet Ava had been discovered walking in perfect circles near the Pike Street Bridge, her lips moving in constant whisper, reciting coordinates that led to empty lots and non-existent addresses. The paramedics who found her wrote that her face was so severely deformed they initially mistook her for a burn victim from an entirely different incident. But there were no burn marks, no traces of explosive residue, no explanation for how she had traveled those impossible miles with injuries that should have left her unconscious. Elena adjusted her reading glasses and studied the medical intake photos one more time. The left side of Ava's face appeared crushed inward, as if subjected to tremendous pressure from within. Her right eye socket had shifted 2 inches higher than her left, creating an asymmetrical mask that made direct eye contact nearly impossible. The bone structure beneath her skin had been reorganized in ways that defied every principle of trauma medicine Elena had learned. Still trying to make sense of it? Dr. Marcus Chun entered the observation room with 2 cups of coffee and the weary expression of a man who had spent too many hours staring at brain scans that refused to follow normal patterns. As the hospital's chief neurologist, Marcus had been Elena's closest colleague for over a decade. They had worked through medical mysteries before, but nothing that came wrapped in military classification and armed supervision. "Look at this X-ray." "Again," Elena said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "The bone density variations make no sense. Some areas show signs of recent trauma, but others appear to have been restructured months ago. It's like her skull was rebuilt in stages." Marcus leaned over her shoulder, studying the images with practiced eyes. At 58, he carried himself with the careful precision of someone who understood that brains were delicate ecosystems, easily disrupted and reluctantly repaired. His silver hair and gentle manner often put patients at ease, but Elena could see the deep concern etched in the lines around his eyes. "The neural activity is even stranger," he said, pulling up digital scans on the main monitor. "During our initial examination, I detected organized electrical patterns in regions that should have been damaged beyond function. It's almost like her brain rewired itself to compensate for the physical trauma. Through the observation window, Elena could see Ava sitting upright in her hospital bed, staring at the far wall with an intensity that made the guards shift uncomfortably. Her medical gown hung loosely on her small frame, and her dark hair had been carefully combed to partially conceal the worst of her facial deformities. Despite everything, she maintained an odd dignity, as if the woman inside remained untouched by whatever had happened to her body. Has she spoken about the explosion? Elena asked. Only in fragments. She remembers walking to work that morning, remembers the elevator breaking down, so she took the stairs. Then nothing until she was here. But sometimes she mumbles technical specifications for equipment I've never heard of. Yesterday, she spent an hour describing a surgical procedure that won't be developed for another 20 years, according to our research database. Elena felt that familiar chill that came when medicine intersected with impossibility. In her experience, patients with severe head trauma either lost memories or retained them. They didn't gain knowledge they had never possessed. The door opened with a soft pneumatic hiss, and Colonel James Morrison stepped into the observation room. At 45, Morrison carried himself with the rigid posture of career military, his gray uniform immaculate, despite spending the last 72 hours managing what he diplomatically called a sensitive medical situation. His pale blue eyes missed nothing, and Elena had learned to be careful about what she wrote in her official reports. Doctors, Morrison nodded to them both. I trust you're making progress with Miss Marlowe's treatment. Elena chose her words carefully. Her physical condition is stabilizing. The facial reconstruction will require multiple surgeries, but we can restore basic functionality. The neurological aspects are more complex. Define complex. Marcus glanced at Elena before responding. Colonel, her brain activity suggests cognitive enhancement rather than trauma-related damage. We're seeing processing speeds and pattern recognition abilities well beyond normal human parameters. It's as if the injury triggered some kind of evolutionary leap. Morrison's expression remained neutral, but Elena noticed his jaw tightened slightly. And her memory of the incident? Fragmented. She claims no recollection of being inside the facility during the explosion. According to her employment records, she was a low-level laboratory technician with basic security clearance. Nothing in her background suggests access to advanced research. Yet here she is, Morrison said, more to himself than to them. The only survivor of an incident that shouldn't have had survivors, with injuries that shouldn't be compatible with consciousness, displaying abilities that shouldn't exist. Elena had worked with military liaisons before, but Morrison's involvement felt different. Most medical cases with security implications were handled by bureaucrats who stayed behind desks and filed reports. Morrison had been present during every examination, every consultation, every moment of medical decision-making. His attention to detail suggested personal investment rather than professional duty. Colonel, can you tell us anything more about the facility's research? Understanding what Ms. Marlowe might have been exposed to could help with her treatment. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, studying Ava through the observation window. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that Elena hadn't heard before. The Meridian Research Facility was working on projects that pushed the boundaries of conventional science. Cognitive enhancement, neural mapping, consciousness studies. The kind of work that attracts brilliant minds and dangerous attention. Was Ms. Marlowe involved in any of these projects? Not according to her official records. But official records don't always tell the complete story. Elena felt pieces of a larger puzzle shifting in her mind, but the picture remained frustratingly incomplete. Are we talking about human experimentation? Morrison's laugh held no humor. Dr. Vasquez, in my experience, the most dangerous experiments are the ones where the subjects volunteer enthusiastically. People will do remarkable things when they believe they're contributing to scientific progress, especially when that contribution comes with significant financial compensation. Through the window, Ava suddenly turned toward them, as if sensing their conversation. For a moment, her misaligned eyes seemed to focus directly on Elena, and there was something in her expression that suggested awareness far beyond what her medical condition should have allowed. Elena felt a strange connection, as if Ava was trying to communicate something that couldn't be spoken aloud. "She needs rest," Elena said finally. "Whatever happened to her, the psychological trauma is still processing. Pushing too hard, too fast could cause permanent damage." "I understand your concerns, doctor. But time may not be a luxury we can afford. There are other parties interested in Ms. Marlowe's condition, and they may not share our commitment to her well-being." Elena looked up sharply. "What kind of other parties?" Morrison adjusted his uniform jacket, a gesture Elena had learned indicated their conversation was ending. "The kind that prefer permanent solutions to complex problems. Which is why it's crucial that we understand exactly what Ms. Marlowe represents and how to protect that information." After Morrison left, Elena and Marcus sat in uncomfortable silence, both staring at Ava through the reinforced glass. The woman had returned to her previous position, gazing at the far wall with that unnervingly focused intensity. "Elena," Marcus said quietly, "I need to show you something that didn't make it into my official report." He pulled up a new set of brain scans, these taken during Ava's sleep cycle. "Look at the hippocampus region. During REM sleep, her neural activity increases by 300%. She's not just dreaming, she's processing information at computational levels." Elena studied the scans with growing unease. "Processing what information?" "I don't know. But whatever it is, her brain is organizing it, cataloging it, and storing it in ways that suggest she has access to data sources beyond her own experience." Elena closed her eyes and rubbed her temples, feeling the beginning of a headache that had nothing to do with caffeine withdrawal. In her decades of medicine, she had learned to trust her instincts about patients. Some would recover quickly, others would struggle, and a few would surprise everyone with their resilience. But Ava Marlowe existed in a category beyond her experience. "Marcus, what if she's not just a survivor? What if she's something else entirely?" Her colleague nodded slowly. "That's what I'm afraid of. And I think Colonel Morrison knows exactly what that something else might be." Elena opened her personal medical journal that evening, the leather-bound book where she recorded her most private thoughts about difficult cases. Her handwriting flowed across the page with the careful precision of someone who understood that some truths could only be preserved in pen and ink. Day 3. Ava Marlowe represents a convergence of impossibilities. Her survival defies physics, her injuries challenge anatomy, and her abilities suggest neural enhancement beyond current medical understanding. Colonel Morrison's involvement indicates government knowledge of experimental procedures that weren't supposed to exist. Most disturbing is my growing certainty that Ms. Marlowe's condition is not accidental. Someone designed this outcome, and now we must decide whether we're treating a patient or studying a prototype. Elena closed the journal and looked toward the hospital where Ava lay sleeping, her enhanced brain processing mysteries that might hold the key to understanding the future of human consciousness itself. The discovery came at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, when most of the hospital staff believed the only sounds should be the gentle hum of life, support machines, and the soft footsteps of night nurses making their rounds. Dr. Marcus Chen had been unable to sleep, his mind churning over the neurological impossibilities he'd observed in Ava Marlowe's brain scans. He'd returned to the hospital to run one more test, a microscopic tissue analysis, that he hoped might provide some rational explanation for what he was seeing. What he found instead changed everything they thought they knew about modern science. Elena arrived 20 minutes after Marcus's urgent phone call, her medical instincts overriding the exhaustion that had finally begun to claim her. She found him in the advanced imaging lab, hunched over a quantum microscope that was typically reserved for the most sophisticated research projects. His face was pale in the blue glow of the monitor, and his hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the focus controls. "Elena, you need to see this," he said without looking up. I was examining cellular samples from Ava's bone tissue, looking for signs of foreign contamination or unusual mineral deposits. What I found shouldn't exist for another 30 years. Elena leaned over his shoulder and felt her breath catch in her throat. The microscopic image showed what appeared to be crystalline structures embedded deep within the bone, matrix perfectly geometric formations that pulsed with their own internal light. Each structure was roughly the size of a red blood cell, but their complexity suggested engineering rather than biological development. "Are those artificial implants?" she asked. "That's what I thought initially. But look at this." Marcus switched to a different sample, this one from neural tissue. "These aren't just implants. They're integrated into her cellular structure. The bone formations are communicating with similar structures in her brain tissue through quantum entanglement." Elena stared at the screen, watching microscopic devices that seemed to pulse in perfect synchronization across vast distances within Ava's body. Her medical training told her that such technology was impossible, but the evidence was undeniable. "Marcus, quantum entanglement requires laboratory conditions and specialized equipment. How could these structures maintain coherence inside a living human body?" "I don't know, but that's not the most disturbing part." He pulled up another screen showing what appeared to be a complex data stream. "These devices are actively processing and transmitting information. Ava's brain isn't just enhanced, it's been turned into a biological computer." Elena felt the familiar chill that came when medicine crossed into territory that felt more like science fiction than reality. "What kind of information?" Before Marcus could answer, the lab door opened with a pneumatic hiss. Colonel Morrison entered with 2 military technicians Elena didn't recognize, both carrying equipment cases marked with biohazard symbols and classification codes. "Dr. Chun, Dr. Vasquez, I understand you've made some interesting discoveries tonight." Elena noticed that Morrison didn't seem surprised by their findings. "Colonel, how did you know we were here?" "The quantum microscope requires special authorization for use after hours. Your research triggered automatic security protocols." Morrison nodded to his technicians, who began setting up their own scanning equipment. "I'm afraid I'll need to see everything you've discovered tonight." Marcus straightened, his protective instincts overriding his usual deference to authority. "Colonel, these are my patient's medical records. I can't share them without proper consent and legal documentation." Morrison's expression remained neutral, but Elena caught the subtle shift in his posture that suggested this conversation wouldn't be as cooperative as their previous interactions. "Doctor, 3 hours ago, our security systems detected unauthorized access to classified databases using logging credentials that belong to Ms. Marlowe. The problem is, she's been unconscious in a secure hospital room since the incident. Someone or something is using her identity to access information that could compromise national security." Elena felt pieces of the puzzle clicking into place with disturbing clarity. The quantum devices, they're not just processing information, they're accessing external networks. Precisely. Which means your patient has become a potential breach point for some of the most sensitive intelligence in the country. We need to understand exactly what these devices are and who put them there. One of Morrison's technicians approached with a portable scanner that looked decades more advanced than anything Elena had seen in medical applications. "Colonel, we're detecting active quantum signatures consistent with Project Mindbridge protocols." Morrison's jaw tightened visibly. That project was terminated 2 years ago. All research materials were supposed to be destroyed. Elena looked between Morrison and the technician, realizing that they were discussing classified projects she wasn't supposed to know about. "Colonel, what exactly was Project Mindbridge?" Morrison was quiet for a long moment, seemingly weighing how much information to share. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone revealing secrets he'd hoped would stay buried. Project Mindbridge was a classified research initiative focused on consciousness transfer and memory enhancement. The theoretical goal was to preserve critical intelligence assets by downloading their knowledge and experience into secure storage systems. Marcus looked up from his microscope with growing horror. "You're talking about extracting human consciousness and storing it like data on a computer." "The research was purely theoretical," Morrison said quickly. "The project was canceled when early trials proved too dangerous and ethically problematic. All subjects were supposed to be debriefed and released with no permanent effects." Elena felt her medical ethics training clashing with the implications of what she was hearing. But Ava was never officially part of any research project. Her employment records show she was just a laboratory technician. Morrison's technician approached with a tablet displaying what appeared to be a classified database entry. "Colonel, we've accessed her genetic profile in the experimental subjects database. She's been logged as Subject 47 since March 2021. The entry includes detailed psychological evaluations and consent forms for consciousness transfer procedures." Elena stared at the screen, reading Ava's information in a context that transformed everything they thought they knew about her case. The profile described a woman desperate to pay for her mother's cancer treatment, willing to participate in experimental procedures in exchange for significant financial compensation. But the consent forms were dated 3 years before the bombing, meaning Ava had been undergoing these procedures for far longer than anyone had admitted. "If this is true, then the bombing wasn't random," Elena said. "Someone was trying to destroy evidence of illegal human experimentation." Morrison nodded grimly. "And Ms. Marlowe wasn't just in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was specifically targeted because of what she represents: living proof of consciousness transfer technology that certain parties would prefer to see eliminated." Marcus pulled up additional brain scans on his monitor. "Colonel, if these devices have been in her system for years, then her current enhanced abilities aren't trauma-related. They're the intended result of the experimental procedures." "Which explains her survival," Elena added. "Her brain was already modified to process and store information beyond normal human capacity. The bombing may have activated or enhanced those capabilities rather than destroying them." Morrison's radio crackled with urgent communication. Elena caught fragments about containment breach and unauthorized data transmission before he stepped away to respond privately. When he returned, his expression was grim. "We have a problem. Intelligence agencies from 3 different countries have been monitoring our facility since Miss Marlowe's arrival. Someone knows what she represents, and they're willing to take significant risks to either extract or eliminate her." Elena felt her protective instincts as a physician clashing with the larger implications of national security. "Colonel, Ava is my patient. Whatever she's become, she deserves medical care and protection, not elimination." "I agree, Doctor. But protecting her may require understanding exactly what information she's carrying and who wants it badly enough to commit acts of war on American soil." Marcus saved his research data to an encrypted drive, his movements careful and deliberate. "If Ava's consciousness has been enhanced with foreign intelligence or experimental technology, then we're not just treating a trauma patient. We're potentially harboring one of the most valuable intelligence assets in the world." Elena looked toward the ward where Ava lay sleeping, her enhanced brain processing mysteries that could reshape the future of human consciousness or trigger an international crisis. The woman who had seemed like a medical anomaly was actually at the center of a web of classified research, foreign espionage, and technological advancement that stretched far beyond the bombing that had brought her to their attention. "We need to talk to her," Elena said finally. "If Ava is going to be at the center of this storm, she deserves to know what's happening to her and what choices she might have." Morrison nodded slowly. "Agreed. The doctor, when we wake her up tomorrow, we may discover that the woman we've been treating is no longer entirely Ava Marlowe." The consciousness transfer process can be unpredictable, especially when the subject has been unconscious for extended periods. Elena felt the weight of medical responsibility settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. In the span of one night, her patient had transformed from a bombing survivor into a potential national security asset whose very existence challenged everything she thought she understood about the boundaries between human consciousness and artificial intelligence. Elena spent the early morning hours doing what she did best, investigating medical mysteries with the thoroughness of a detective and the precision of a scientist. While Colonel Morrison coordinated security protocols and Dr. Chen analyzed the quantum devices in Ava's neural tissue, Elena focused on understanding the human story behind the technological marvel their patient had become. The Meridian Research Facility's public records had been scrubbed clean following the explosion, but Elena had learned long ago that determined physicians could access information through medical networks the bureaucrats often overlooked. Her inquiry began with a simple question. If Ava had been participating in experimental procedures for 3 years, where were the medical monitoring records that should have documented her condition? What she found in the archived research databases made her hand shake as she printed the documents. The Project Mindbridge research proposal was a masterpiece of scientific ambition, wrapped in careful euphemisms and technical language designed to obscure its true implications. Elena spread the partially recovered pages across her office desk, piecing together a narrative that read like a blueprint for redefining human consciousness itself. According to the proposal, dated January 2021, Project Mindbridge sought to explore the theoretical boundaries of memory consolidation and cognitive enhancement through voluntary participation in consciousness mapping procedures. The language was clinical, but Elena's medical training allowed her to translate the scientific jargon into human terms. They were experimenting with extracting, copying, and transferring human memories and personality traits between different subjects. The volunteer criteria were disturbingly specific. Subjects needed to be between 25 and 30 years old, with demonstrated financial stress and limited family connections. They required baseline cognitive abilities in the superior range, but without advanced education that might make them resistant to the experimental procedures. Most importantly, they needed to be emotionally motivated to participate, desperate enough to accept significant personal risk in exchange for financial compensation. Ava Marlowe fit every criterion perfectly. Elena found Ava's name listed as Subject 47 in a roster that included 49 other volunteers. The financial compensation records showed payments of $50,000 for initial participation, with additional payments of $25,000 for each subsequent procedure. Over 3 years, Ava had earned nearly $300,000, more than enough to cover her mother's cancer treatment and provide financial security for both of them. But the medical monitoring reports told a different story. Each procedure had left Ava with increasing neurological changes that the researchers documented with scientific detachment. Her IQ scores rose from 128 to over 180 within the first year. Her memory recall became eidetic, allowing her to reproduce complex technical information with perfect accuracy. Most disturbing, her personality assessments showed gradual changes in emotional response patterns and decision-making processes that suggested someone else's consciousness was influencing her behavior. Elena's medical training screamed warnings about informed consent and patient exploitation, but the documents showed that Ava had enthusiastically participated in every phase of the research. Her recorded statements expressed gratitude for the financial support and genuine excitement about contributing to scientific advancement. She had volunteered for procedures that were transforming her into something beyond normal human experience. The office door opened, interrupting Elena's research. She looked up to see Ava herself standing in the doorway, still wearing her hospital gown, but moving with a coordination and awareness that her medical condition shouldn't have allowed. "Dr. Vasquez," Ava said, her voice clearer than it had been since her arrival, "I need to show you something." Elena rose quickly, her protective instincts overriding her surprise. "Ava, you shouldn't be out of bed. Your injuries require. My injuries are healing faster than your medical textbooks say they should." Ava interrupted gently. "Just like everything else about my condition challenges what you think you know about human biology." Elena noticed that Ava's facial deformities seemed less severe than they had appeared in previous examinations. The asymmetry was still present, but the overall structure looked more stable, as if her bone tissue was actively reorganizing itself. "How did you get past the security guards?" Ava smiled, and for the first time, Elena could see the intelligence that burned behind her misaligned eyes. "The quantum devices in my neural tissue can interface with electronic security systems. I've been monitoring your conversations and research since I arrived here." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the hospital's air conditioning. "You've been conscious this entire time? Conscious, aware, and processing information from sources you couldn't imagine. But I haven't been myself, not entirely." Ava moved to Elena's desk and looked down at the Project Mindbridge documents. "These papers tell part of the story, but they don't explain what the procedures actually did to me." Ava picked up a pen and began drawing on the back of one of the research pages. Her hand moved with mechanical precision, creating technical diagrams that looked like blueprints for advanced neural interface technology. The drawings showed human brain tissue integrated with quantum computing elements in ways that current science considered impossible. "This is what they built inside my head," Ava said, continuing to draw without looking at the paper. "A biological computer capable of storing and processing multiple consciousness streams simultaneously. They told me it would enhance my cognitive abilities, but they didn't explain that it would also allow them to download other people's memories and personalities into my neural matrix." Elena watched in fascination as Ava's drawings became increasingly complex, showing detailed specifications for consciousness transfer protocols that seemed decades ahead of current technology. "Ava, how do you know how to draw these diagrams?" "Because I'm not just Ava anymore." She set down the pen and looked directly at Elena. "The consciousness transfer procedures were successful beyond the researchers' expectations. My brain now contains the memories, knowledge, and partial personalities of 3 other experimental subjects who died during the process." Elena felt her medical worldview shifting as she tried to process the implications of what Ava was telling her. "You're saying you have multiple people's consciousness stored in your mind." "I'm saying I am multiple people, all sharing the same neural network. Ava Marlowe is the original personality, but she shares space with Dr. Sarah Kim's scientific knowledge, Agent Michael Torres's intelligence training, and Dr. Rebecca Hart's psychological expertise." Elena looked more closely at the technical drawings, recognizing elements that seemed far beyond Ava's educational background as a laboratory technician. "These other personalities, are they aware?" "They exist as memory streams and knowledge databases. I can access their information and skills, but they're not independently conscious. Ava Marlowe remains the dominant personality because her neural patterns were the strongest and most adaptable." Elena sat down heavily, struggling to reconcile her medical training with the reality of treating a patient who existed as a fusion of multiple human consciousness streams. "Why are you telling Me this? Ava's expression became serious, and Elena could see layers of intelligence and experience that belonged to someone much older and more knowledgeable than the young woman before her. Because the bombing wasn't random, Dr. Vasquez. Someone discovered that the consciousness transfer technology was being used for purposes beyond the original research parameters. They tried to eliminate all evidence of the project, including the experimental subjects. But you survived. I survived because the multiple consciousness streams in my neural matrix created redundant cognitive pathways. When the explosion damaged my physical brain, the integrated personalities allowed my consciousness to continue functioning through alternative neural routes. Elena looked at the technical drawings again, beginning to understand the full scope of what Project Mindbridge had achieved. Ava, you're not just an experimental subject. You're proof that human consciousness can be copied, transferred, and preserved. I'm proof that the boundaries between individual identity and collective intelligence are more fluid than anyone imagined. But I'm also a target for people who want to either control this technology or destroy it completely. Elena felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Her patient wasn't just a medical case. She was potentially the most important scientific discovery of the century. And now Elena had to decide whether to protect that discovery or expose the truth about the research that had created it. Elena's routine examination of Ava the following morning revealed something that changed everything about their understanding of the case. During her standard physical assessment, her fingers detected an unusual thickness in the lining of Ava's hospital jacket, the same jacket she had been wearing when the rescue workers found her near the Pike Street Bridge. Ava, I need to examine your jacket more thoroughly, Elena said, her medical instincts alert to the possibility of concealed medical devices or identification materials. Ava nodded with the calm awareness that had replaced her earlier confusion. You'll find what you're looking for sewn into the inner lining, just below the left shoulder seam. Elena carefully cut through the fabric with surgical scissors, revealing a small device no larger than a hearing aid, wrapped in medical-grade, waterproof material. The object was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse with its own internal energy source. Unlike any medical equipment Elena had encountered, it appeared to be constructed from materials that seemed to shift and adapt as she handled them. What is this? Elena asked, though she suspected Ava's enhanced knowledge would provide answers that conventional medicine couldn't. An encrypted communication device, Ava replied, her voice carrying the technical confidence that came from accessing Dr. Sarah Kim's scientific expertise. It's designed to interface with quantum communication networks and contains coordinates to safe houses, extraction protocols, and coded messages about other Project Mindbridge subjects. Elena connected the device to her computer using a standard USB adapter, surprised when it immediately began displaying data without requiring any special software or security codes. The information that appeared on her screen read like a survival manual for people who existed outside normal society. The device contained detailed maps of Seattle with locations marked as safe zones and compromised areas. Each safe zone included emergency contact information, medical supply caches, and communication protocols for reaching what appeared to be an underground network of people with similar technological enhancements. But the most disturbing information was a list of 47 names with current status indicators. Most entries were marked terminated or missing, but 6 subjects showed active status with recent location updates and health monitoring data. Ava, this suggests there are other people like you, other consciousness transfer subjects, who survived the project termination. Ava studied the device display with the focused attention that Elena had learned indicated she was accessing multiple consciousness streams simultaneously. The other subjects were given similar emergency communication devices before the project was officially canceled. Dr. Kim suspected that termination would involve more than just ending the research. She believed they would eliminate all evidence, including the volunteers. Elena scrolled through the coded messages, finding communications that painted a picture of experimental subjects living and hiding, using their enhanced abilities to survive while avoiding detection by military and intelligence agencies. These messages indicate that some subjects developed abilities beyond consciousness transfer, enhanced physical healing, expanded sensory perception, even limited telepathic communication with others who have the quantum neural implants. The consciousness transfer process created unexpected mutations in human neural architecture, Ava explained, drawing on Dr. Kim's research knowledge. When you combine multiple personality streams with quantum-enhanced neural processing, the human brain adapts in ways that transcend normal biological limitations. Elena read one message that made her hands tremble. Subject 23 reports military. Contractors have eliminated 3 additional subjects in the past month. Remaining active subjects should consider the emergency extraction protocols. Time may be running out for all of us. Ava, according to this communication log, people are being systematically eliminated. You're not just in medical danger. You're in mortal danger from people who want to erase all evidence of Project Mindbridge. Ava's expression became contemplative, accessing memories that belonged to her, but also to the other consciousness streams integrated into her neural matrix. When I volunteered for the initial procedures, I believed I was contributing to medical research that could help people with traumatic brain injuries and memory disorders. My mother was dying of brain cancer, and the experimental treatments offered hope for future patients like her. Elena could hear the genuine emotion in Ava's voice as she accessed her original memories and motivations. Despite the technological enhancements and integrated personalities, the core of Ava Marlowe remained a daughter who had been desperate to save her mother. The first procedures were exactly as promised: cognitive enhancement and memory improvement. I could learn faster, remember more, and process complex information with ease. The financial compensation allowed me to pay for my mother's treatments and give her comfort during her final months. But something changed? Dr. Kim discovered that military contractors were using our enhanced neural architecture for purposes beyond medical research. They began downloading classified intelligence data directly into our consciousness streams, turning us into human storage devices for state secrets and foreign intelligence. Elena looked at the communication device again, understanding that it represented more than emergency protocols. It was evidence of a network of people who had been transformed into living repositories of classified information. The other consciousness streams in your mind, Dr. Kim, Agent Torres, Dr. Hart, were they eliminated because they knew too much? Ava nodded slowly. Dr. Sarah Kim was the lead researcher who tried to warn subjects about the military applications. Agent Torres was an intelligence operative who discovered that foreign governments had infiltrated the project. Dr. Hart was a psychologist who documented the ethical violations and planned to expose the research publicly. And their consciousness streams were transferred to you before they were killed? Dr. Kim managed to initiate emergency consciousness backup protocols before the facility was destroyed. She knew that someone was systematically eliminating anyone with knowledge of the true scope of Project Mindbridge, so she preserved their most critical knowledge and expertise in the subjects most likely to survive. Elena felt the pieces of a larger conspiracy falling into place. So you're not just a consciousness transfer experiment. You're a living archive of evidence that could expose illegal human experimentation and foreign intelligence operations. Ava accessed the communication device again, displaying a new message. That had arrived while they were talking. Subject 47 location compromised. Military contractors en route to Seattle Medical Center. Emergency extraction required within 6 hours. Elena felt her heart rate increase as she realized that their conversation had been monitored and that dangerous people were already moving to eliminate Ava and anyone who might protect her. Dr. Vasquez, the people who destroyed the research facility will not hesitate to eliminate anyone who threatens their secrets. You've learned too much to remain safe, and I've been located despite the hospital's security measures. Elena looked at her patient, this young woman who had become something unprecedented in human experience, and made the decision that would define the rest of her career. Then we'll have to disappear before they arrive. Dr. Marcus Chen's discovery came not through official channels or sanctioned research, but through the kind of persistent curiosity that had made him one of the country's leading neurologists. While Elena worked with Ava to understand the communication device, Marcus had been following digital breadcrumbs left by Dr. Sarah Kim, fragments of encrypted research data hidden in medical databases and disguised as routine patient files. The breakthrough came at 2:30 a.m. when Marcus finally cracked the encryption key that Dr. Kim had embedded in her neurological research publications. What he found was a digital vault containing the most comprehensive documentation of consciousness transfer technology ever assembled, along with personal warnings about the military's true intentions for Project Mind Bridge. Dr. Kim's hidden laboratory journal read like a confession and a warning combined into a single devastating document. January 15th, 2023. The consciousness transfer protocols have exceeded our most optimistic projections. Subject 47, Ava Marlowe, has successfully integrated partial personality streams from 3 other volunteers with minimal cognitive disruption. Her enhanced neural architecture now allows for memory storage and processing capabilities that approach artificial intelligence levels while maintaining human emotional and creative functions. Marcus scrolled through months of detailed observations, watching as Dr. Kim's excitement about the scientific breakthrough gradually transformed into horror about its practical applications. March 3, 2023. Colonel Morrison has introduced new requirements for the consciousness transfer procedures. Subjects are now being loaded with classified intelligence data and foreign language capabilities that have nothing to do with medical enhancement. We are no longer conducting research. We are creating human storage devices for military intelligence. Elena found Marcus in his office at dawn, surrounded by printed pages and looking like a man who had discovered something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Elena, Dr. Kim documented everything. The consciousness transfer technology wasn't just successful, it was revolutionary. She developed methods for preserving human personality and memory that could theoretically allow consciousness to survive indefinitely. Elena sank into a chair, exhausted from her night of revelations with Ava. Marcus, we need to get Ava out of the hospital. The communication device she was carrying indicates that military contractors are coming to eliminate her. That's consistent with what I found in Dr. Kim's journal. Look at this entry from 2 weeks before the explosion. Marcus pulled up a journal entry that made Elena's blood run cold. April 8, 2023. I have discovered that the consciousness transfer technology is being used to implant foreign intelligence operatives' personality streams into American citizens. Subject 23 now carries the complete memories and expertise of a Chinese intelligence officer. Subject 31 has been loaded with Russian technical specifications for weapon systems. We are not enhancing human consciousness. We are facilitating foreign infiltration of American society. Dr. Kim realized that Project Mindbridge had been compromised by foreign intelligence agencies. Marcus continued. They were using our research to create perfect sleeper agents, Americans with enhanced cognitive abilities, who carried foreign operatives' knowledge and training. Elena thought about Ava's multiple consciousness streams and felt a new fear growing in her chest. Marcus, what if Ava is carrying foreign intelligence data? What if she's not just a victim but an unwitting security threat? Marcus pulled up another journal entry. April 15th, 2023. I have initiated emergency protocols to preserve the consciousness streams of key American personnel before the project is terminated. Dr. Rebecca Hart's psychological expertise, Agent Michael Torres's counterintelligence training, and my own research knowledge have been backed up into Subject 47's neural matrix. If the facility is destroyed, critical information about the foreign infiltration will survive. So, Ava contains intelligence that could expose the foreign operation rather than facilitate it, Elena said with relief. According to Dr. Kim's final entries, she realized that someone was planning to eliminate all evidence of Project Mindbridge, including the research staff and experimental subjects. She used the consciousness transfer technology to preserve evidence that could expose the infiltration and protect national security. Marcus showed Elena the journal's final entry, dated just 3 days before the explosion. The facility will be destroyed within the week. I have loaded Subject 47 with all critical evidence and given her the tools needed to survive the termination operation. Her enhanced neural architecture and multiple consciousness streams should allow her to evade detection, while preserving the information needed to expose the truth. If anyone finds this journal, know that Ava Marlowe carries the key to unraveling the greatest intelligence operation in modern history. Elena felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her shoulders. So protecting Ava isn't just about saving a patient. It's about preventing a foreign intelligence operation from succeeding and ensuring that the people responsible for turning American citizens into unwitting agents are brought to justice, Marcus added. Their conversation was interrupted by urgent knocking on Marcus's office door. Colonel Morrison entered without waiting for permission, his face grim and his normally immaculate uniform showing signs of a sleepless night. Doctors, we have a problem. 3 hours ago, someone used Ava Marlowe's genetic signature to access classified databases at the Pentagon, the CIA, and the National Security Agency. The security breach triggered automatic threat assessment protocols that have every intelligence agency in Washington demanding immediate action. Elena and Marcus exchanged glances, both understanding that Ava's enhanced abilities were attracting exactly the kind of attention that Dr. Kim had feared. Colonel, the access wasn't unauthorized, Elena said carefully. Ava is recovering memories and capabilities that were programmed into her neural matrix as part of Project Mindbridge. She's not committing security breaches. She's accessing information that belongs to her integrated consciousness streams. Morrison's expression darkened. Doctor, from the perspective of national security, it doesn't matter whether the breach is intentional or accidental. Ava Marlowe has become a walking security violation that threatens some of our most sensitive intelligence operations. Marcus stood up, his protective instincts overriding his usual deference to military authority. Colonel, Ava is a victim of illegal human experimentation. She didn't choose to become a repository for classified information. I understand your concerns, but the decision is out of my hands. Intelligence agencies from multiple countries are now aware that someone with comprehensive knowledge of their operations is active in Seattle. We have reports of foreign assets moving toward this location. Elena felt her heart rate spike. You're saying that international intelligence agencies are coming here? I'm saying that the hospital is about to become a battlefield between competing forces who either want to capture or eliminate what Ava represents. Our only option is to move her to a secure facility where she can be properly debriefed and protected. Elena looked at Marcus, both of them recognizing that debriefed and protected was likely military euphemism for interrogated and imprisoned. Colonel, Ava isn't just carrying foreign intelligence. She's carrying evidence that could expose how that intelligence was implanted in American citizens. Dr. Kim preserved information that could prevent this from happening to other people. Morrison was quiet for a long moment. studying both doctors with the calculating expression of someone weighing competing loyalties and responsibilities. Then we need to extract that information before foreign operatives eliminate her to protect their secrets. Either way, Ava Marlowe cannot remain in this hospital. Elena realized that they had reached the point where protecting Ava would require choosing sides in a conflict that extended far beyond medical ethics and patient care. The woman lying in room 247 had become the focal point of international intelligence operations that could reshape the balance of power between nations. Colonel, what happens to Ava after you extract the information? Morrison's silence was answer enough. The classified document that Elena intercepted was never meant for civilian eyes. She discovered it by accident while using Colonel Morrison's computer terminal to check Ava's latest neurological test results, a simple case of the wrong window. Remaining open when Morrison stepped away to take an urgent phone call, what she saw made her blood freeze. The document header read, Operation Mindwipe, authorization for immediate termination of Project Mindbridge assets, and was signed by officials, whose names Elena recognized from news reports about national security briefings. The text was clinical in its brutality, outlining procedures for neutralizing remaining experimental subjects with minimal collateral exposure. Ava Marlowe was listed as Priority 1 termination target with a detailed profile describing her enhanced capabilities and the specific intelligence threats she represented. But what horrified Elena most was the final paragraph, which authorized elimination of all medical personnel with knowledge of subject capabilities to prevent intelligence compromise. Elena's name appeared on a list of healthcare workers marked for immediate containment. Her hands shook as she photographed a document with her phone, understanding that she had perhaps minutes before Morrison returned and discovered her unauthorized access to classified information. But as she prepared to close the document, one final detail caught her attention, a file signature line that revealed the true scope of the conspiracy. The kill order hadn't been issued by American intelligence agencies protecting national security. It had been authorized by officials whose classified profiles indicated they were foreign assets who had infiltrated the highest levels of government through the same consciousness transfer technology that had enhanced Ava. Project Mindbridge hadn't just been compromised by foreign intelligence. It had been designed by them from the beginning as a method for placing their operatives in positions of American power. Elena closed the document and returned to Ava's room with new understanding of the forces arrayed against them. She found Ava sitting upright in bed, her enhanced awareness immediately detecting Elena's emotional state. Dr. Vasquez, what did you discover? Elena showed Ava the photographs of the kill order, watching as the young woman's expression shifted. Through the complex interplay of personalities that now defined her consciousness. They're going to eliminate both of us, Elena said quietly. And according to this document, the people giving the orders may not be working for American interests. Ava studied the images with the analytical focus that came from accessing Agent Torres's intelligence training. The consciousness transfer technology was never intended to enhance American capabilities. It was designed to allow foreign operatives to assume American identities while retaining their original knowledge and loyalties. But you're different. Dr. Kim made sure that American consciousness streams dominated your neural matrix, which makes me a threat to their entire operation. I carry the evidence needed to expose how they've infiltrated government agencies and the knowledge required to identify other compromised officials. Elena sat down, feeling the weight of impossible choices settling on her shoulders. Ava, even if we escape from the hospital, where can we go? If foreign agents have infiltrated the highest levels of government, there may be nowhere safe. Ava's expression became thoughtful as she accessed memories and capabilities from her integrated consciousness streams. Dr. Kim anticipated this scenario. She created safeguards and established contact protocols with loyal intelligence operatives. who weren't compromised by the consciousness transfer program. How can we identify who to trust? The quantum communication device contains authentication codes that can verify the consciousness patterns of government officials. Foreign operatives who underwent consciousness transfer retain subtle neural signatures that can be detected by someone with my enhanced capabilities. Elena felt a spark of hope. You can identify who's being compromised? I can identify consciousness transfer subjects, but determining their loyalties requires more complex analysis. Some foreign operatives may have genuinely defected after experiencing American memories and values. Others may be deep cover agents waiting for activation. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alarm that echoed through the hospital corridors. Elena's medical training immediately recognized the pattern as a general security alert, the kind issued when the facility faced imminent external threats. Colonel Morrison's voice came over the hospital intercom system. All medical personnel report to secure stations. We have confirmed hostile forces approaching the facility. This is not a drill. Elena looked toward the window and saw dark vehicles surrounding the hospital perimeter. Through the glass, she could see armed figures taking strategic positions. That suggested military or intelligence training. They're not waiting for official authorization, Ava observed. The foreign operatives have decided to eliminate the evidence directly. Elena felt her protective instincts overriding her fear. Then, we leave now, before they can establish a complete perimeter. Ava stood up with the fluid coordination that her enhanced neural architecture provided. Dr. Vasquez, you don't understand the full scope of what you're committing to. Protecting me means becoming a target of international intelligence operations. Your life will never be normal again. Elena thought about her decades of medical practice, the oath she had taken to protect patients regardless of personal cost, and the woman before her who represented both a scientific miracle and a threat to global security. Ava, when I became a doctor, I swore to do no harm and to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. You didn't choose to become a weapon in an intelligence war, and I won't let them eliminate you for what others did to you. Ava's expression showed genuine emotion, gratitude mixed with sorrow for the sacrifice Elena was making. Then we need to reach Dr. Kim. She's still alive and working with a small network of loyal operatives who understand the true scope of the infiltration. How do we find her? Ava activated the quantum communication device, which immediately displayed a map of Seattle with a pulsing location marker in the industrial district near the waterfront. The device can track quantum signatures from other consciousness transfer subjects. Dr. Kim retained a portion of her consciousness in my neural matrix, which creates a quantum entanglement that allows for location tracking. Elena gathered essential medical supplies and identification documents, understanding that they were about to leave behind everything familiar and safe. What's our extraction plan? Service elevator to the basement level, emergency exit through the maintenance tunnels, and extraction via quantum encrypted communication with loyal intelligence assets. As they prepared to leave, Elena took one final look at the hospital room that had been Ava's sanctuary and prison for the past week. In that room, they had discovered that human consciousness could be copied, transferred, and preserved, a breakthrough that could revolutionize medicine or destroy the foundations of individual identity. Now they were about to discover whether that technology could be used to protect democracy or whether it had already been weaponized to destroy it from within. Dr. Vasquez, Ava said as they approached the door, once we leave this room, there's no going back to your normal life. Are you certain this is what you want? Elena thought about the young woman who had volunteered for experimental procedures to save her dying mother, who had been transformed into a living repository of classified intelligence without her knowledge, and who now carried the key to exposing one of the most sophisticated infiltration operations in history. I'm certain Dr. Sarah Kim's survival was the first surprise. Elena had expected to find a hidden laboratory or a safe house when they followed the quantum communication device to the industrial district. Instead, they discovered a sophisticated medical facility, concealed within what appeared to be an abandoned shipping warehouse, complete with advanced neurological equipment and multiple consciousness transfer subjects who had been living in hiding for months. Dr. Kim herself was the second surprise. The woman who emerged to greet them bore a little resemblance to the research scientist Elena had imagined from reading her journal entries. At 55, Dr. Kim moved with the careful precision of someone whose enhanced neural architecture allowed her to process multiple streams of consciousness simultaneously. Her eyes held the depth of someone who had experienced the memories and knowledge of dozens of other people. "Dr. Vasquez, Ava," she said, her voice carrying subtle accents that suggested linguistic capabilities downloaded from foreign consciousness streams. "I've been monitoring your situation through quantum entanglement with Ava's neural matrix. We have perhaps 30 minutes before hostile forces triangulate our location." Elena looked around the hidden facility, seeing at least 6 other enhanced individuals working with equipment that seemed decades ahead of current technology. "Dr. Kim, how many consciousness transfer subjects survived the project termination?" 14, including Ava. "But Elena, what you've discovered about Project Mindbridge represents only the surface layer of what we're actually dealing with." Dr. Kim led them to a secure briefing room where the walls were covered with classified documents, intelligence reports, and photographs that told a story more complex and disturbing than Elena had imagined possible. Project Mindbridge wasn't compromised by foreign intelligence agencies. Dr. Kim began, her words carrying the weight of someone revealing secrets that could reshape global politics. It was designed by them from the beginning as the most sophisticated infiltration operation in human history. Elena stared at a photograph showing what appeared to be a White House meeting, with several officials whose faces were marked with indicators suggesting consciousness transfer modification. "You're saying that foreign agents are operating at the highest levels of government?" "I'm saying that foreign operatives' consciousness streams have been downloaded into American citizens who then assume positions of power while retaining their original loyalties and objectives." Ava accessed her enhanced capabilities, studying the classified documents with the analytical focus that came from her integrated intelligence training. "Dr. Kim, according to these profiles, at least 12 current government officials show neural signatures consistent with consciousness transfer procedures." "Exactly. But here's where the situation becomes more complex than a simple case of foreign infiltration." Dr. Kim pulled up a classified document that Elena recognized as a presidential authorization code, the kind of high-level directive that required approval from the very top of the American government. This document authorizes Project Mindbridge as a counterintelligence operation designed to place American consciousness streams into foreign operatives for the purpose of gathering intelligence and disrupting hostile operations. Elena felt her understanding of the situation shifting as she read the authorization. "You're saying that American intelligence agencies were conducting the same consciousness transfer operations against foreign targets. The technology works both ways. While foreign agents were downloading their operatives into American citizens, we were downloading American intelligence personnel into foreign assets. The result is a global network of enhanced individuals whose true loyalties are often unclear even to themselves." Ava looked up from the documents, her expression showing the complex interplay of personalities that defined her consciousness. "Dr. Kim, if both sides were conducting consciousness transfer operations, how do we determine who represents genuine American interests?" Dr. Kim's smile held no humor. "That's the question that makes this situation unprecedented in intelligence history. Some foreign operatives who received American consciousness streams have experienced genuine conversion to American values. Some American operatives who infiltrated foreign networks have been compromised by the ideologies they were supposed to combat. Elena studied a world map marked with locations of confirmed consciousness transfer subjects, seeing indicators spread across 6 continents. You're describing a global network of people whose identities and loyalties have been fundamentally altered by technology. And Ava represents something unique in that network. Her neural matrix contains consciousness streams from individuals who documented the entire operation before they were eliminated. She carries evidence that could expose the infiltration on both sides and identify which enhanced individuals remain loyal to their original nations. Elena felt the pieces of an impossible puzzle clicking into place. The kill order I intercepted, it wasn't issued by foreign agents trying to protect their operation. It was issued by American officials who were trying to prevent exposure of our own consciousness transfer program. Correct. The bombing of the Meridian Research Facility was ordered by American intelligence to eliminate evidence of illegal human experimentation and unauthorized consciousness transfer operations. But they didn't realize that Dr. Kim had preserved critical evidence in surviving subjects like Ava. Ava accessed memories from Agent Torres's consciousness stream, her expression becoming grim. Dr. Kim, if American intelligence ordered the elimination of Project Mindbridge subjects, then Colonel Morrison's protection of me represents insubordination to his superiors. Colonel Morrison is one of 12 military officers whose consciousness was enhanced with foreign intelligence data as part of a prisoner exchange program. His loyalty to you isn't based on orders. It's based on ethical programming downloaded from a Russian intelligence operative who defected after experiencing American military honor codes. Elena felt her worldview collapsing and reforming as she tried to process the implications. You're saying that Morrison is protecting Ava because foreign consciousness streams taught him to value human dignity over national security. I'm saying that consciousness transfer technology has created a new category of human being. Individuals whose moral frameworks combine the ethical systems of multiple cultures and nationalities. Some of these hybrid personalities represent the best of human values, while others combine the worst aspects of competing ideologies. Dr. Kim pulled up a final document that made Elena's hands shake. This is a genetic analysis of government officials conducted using quantum scanning technology. 47 current members of Congress, 18 cabinet-level officials, and 6 Supreme Court justices show evidence of consciousness modification. The implications are staggering, Elena said quietly. How do we determine which laws, policies, and decisions have been influenced by foreign consciousness streams? We don't. That information died with the researchers who conducted the original procedures. But we can identify enhanced individuals and attempt to determine their current loyalties through behavioral analysis and quantum consciousness mapping. Ava stood up, her movements showing the fluid coordination that her enhanced neural architecture provided. Dr. Kim, what's the ultimate objective? Are we trying to expose the consciousness transfer program or protect it? Dr. Kim's expression became contemplative. That depends on what we discover about the enhanced individuals currently in positions of power. If foreign consciousness streams have genuinely adopted American values and are making decisions that benefit democracy, then exposure could destabilize beneficial leadership. But if foreign operatives are using their positions to advance hostile agendas, then we have a constitutional crisis that threatens the foundation of democratic government. Elena looked around the hidden facility, seeing enhanced individuals whose existence challenged everything she thought she understood about human identity and national loyalty. Dr. Kim, what's our next step? We use Ava's enhanced capabilities to identify and evaluate the consciousness patterns of key government officials. A neural matrix contains the analytical tools needed to determine whether enhanced individuals are acting in American interests or advancing foreign agendas. Elena realized that they were proposing to conduct unauthorized psychological evaluation of the highest levels of government, using technology that shouldn't exist and capabilities that challenge the boundaries of human consciousness. And if we discover that foreign consciousness streams are controlling American policy? Dr. Kim's expression showed the weight of someone who had spent months contemplating impossible choices. Then we face the question of whether consciousness transfer subjects like ourselves have the right to determine the future of human identity and democratic government. Elena looked at Ava, seeing a young woman who had volunteered for medical research to save her dying mother and had been transformed into a key figure in reshaping the relationship between technology, consciousness, and political power. Ava, this goes far beyond medical ethics or patient protection. We're talking about the future of human civilization. Ava's response carried the wisdom of multiple consciousness streams combined with the determination of someone who had sacrificed everything for family and now fought to preserve human dignity in an age of technological manipulation. Dr. Vasquez, when I volunteered for consciousness transfer procedures, I believed I was contributing to medical advancement. Now, I understand that I became part of something that could either elevate human potential or destroy individual identity forever. Then, we proceed carefully, Elena said, and hope that enhanced human consciousness leads to better decisions rather than more sophisticated forms of control. The consciousness extraction device represented both salvation and potential death sentence for Ava Marlowe. Dr. Kim had spent 8 months developing the prototype in secret, using resources salvaged from the destroyed Meridian Research Facility and technical specifications preserved in her enhanced memory matrix. The machine filled an entire room in the hidden warehouse, its crystalline components pulsing with quantum energy that seemed to respond to Ava's presence. Elena studied the device with the critical eye of someone whose medical training had taught her to evaluate risk versus benefit. The extraction chamber looked like a sophisticated surgical suite, merged with technology that belonged in science fiction rather than contemporary medicine. Quantum sensors lined the walls, designed to map and separate the individual consciousness streams that had been integrated into Ava's neural architecture. The survival rate is 30%, Dr. Kim explained, her voice carrying the clinical detachment of someone who had learned to separate emotional attachment from medical necessity. The consciousness extraction process requires temporarily shutting down the neural pathways that maintain integrated personality streams. If we can successfully separate the foreign intelligence data while preserving Ava's original consciousness, she could regain normal human cognitive function. Elena examined the detailed medical schematics, seeing procedures that pushed the boundaries of neurosurgery into territory that no ethical review board would ever approve. And if the extraction fails, permanent consciousness fragmentation, brain death, or survival severely damaged cognitive function. The quantum entanglement between consciousness streams creates dependencies that may be impossible to safely dissolve. Ava sat in the monitoring chair, electrodes attached to her temples as Dr. Kim's equipment mapped the complex neural architecture that had been created through years of experimental procedures. Elena could see the readouts showing at least 4 distinct consciousness patterns operating within Ava's mind, each contributing different capabilities and knowledge to her enhanced cognitive function. There's another factor we need to consider, Dr. Kim continued. The foreign intelligence data in Ava's consciousness includes information about planned terrorist attacks, nuclear facility vulnerabilities, and international assassination targets. Extracting that information could prevent significant loss of life. Elena felt the familiar weight of impossible medical decisions. But extracting the intelligence data could also eliminate Ava's enhanced abilities and leave her vulnerable to elimination by hostile operatives who want to prevent exposure of consciousness transfer technology. Dr. Marcus Chun had arrived at the hidden facility 6 hours earlier, bringing with him additional medical equipment and the latest Intelligence about government officials who had been identified as consciousness transfer subjects. His analysis of the enhanced individuals in positions of power painted a disturbing picture of democratic institutions that had been fundamentally altered by foreign consciousness streams. Elena, we've identified 12 senators whose neural patterns show evidence of consciousness modification, Marcus reported. 3 of them are scheduled to vote on military funding bills that could affect national security for decades. Elena studied the intelligence reports, seeing the faces of elected officials she had respected for their policy positions and public service. How do we determine whether their voting patterns reflect American interests or foreign influence? That's where Ava's capabilities become crucial, Dr. Kim explained. Our enhanced neural architecture can analyze consciousness patterns and identify foreign loyalty programming versus genuine policy conviction. But the analysis requires her to maintain the enhanced cognitive abilities that the extraction process would eliminate. Ava looked up from the monitoring chair, her expression showing the complex interplay of personalities that defined her consciousness. Dr. Vasquez, I've been accessing Agent Torres's intelligence training to evaluate the foreign consciousness data in my neural matrix. The information includes plans for coordinated attacks on American infrastructure that are scheduled to begin within 72 hours. Elena felt her heart rate spike. What kind of attacks? Cyber warfare targeting electrical grids, physical sabotage of transportation networks, and coordinated disinformation campaigns designed to destabilize democratic institutions. The foreign operatives embedded in government positions are prepared to facilitate these attacks by ensuring inadequate defensive responses. Dr. Kim pulled up classified intelligence reports on her computer screens. This is consistent with what we've observed through monitoring enhanced individuals in government positions. Several officials have been using their access to classified information to coordinate with foreign assets. Elena looked at the consciousness extraction device, understanding that they faced a choice between saving Ava's individual identity and preserving intelligence that could protect national security. Is there any way to extract the critical intelligence without eliminating Ava's enhanced capabilities? Theoretically, we could perform selective consciousness editing, removing specific foreign data streams while preserving others. But the procedure has never been attempted, and the risk of permanent neural damage approaches 90%. Ava accessed memories from Dr. Rebecca Hart's psychological expertise, her expression becoming thoughtful as she processed the ethical implications of their situation. Dr. Vasquez, there's something you need to understand about consciousness transfer technology. The foreign intelligence data isn't just stored in my neural matrix. It's actively influencing my decision-making processes. Elena felt a chill of understanding. You're saying that the foreign consciousness streams are affecting your personality and judgment. I'm saying that I can feel foreign thought patterns trying to influence my choices, especially when discussing national security issues. The consciousness transfer process doesn't just copy information. It preserves the emotional attachments and loyalty programming of the original personalities. Dr. Kim nodded grimly. This is why the extraction procedure becomes urgent. Every day that Ava retains the foreign consciousness streams, she becomes more susceptible to their influence. Eventually, the foreign programming could overwhelm her original personality completely. Elena studied the monitoring readouts, seeing neural activity patterns that showed increasing integration between the different consciousness streams in Ava's mind. How long before the foreign personalities become dominant? Based on current neural integration rates, perhaps 72 hours before Ava's original consciousness becomes a minority voice in her own mind. Marcus approached with urgent communications he had received through encrypted channels. We have additional complications. Intelligence agencies from 3 countries have identified our location and are coordinating efforts to either capture or eliminate Ava. Elena looked at the tactical display showing hostile forces positioning around their warehouse facility. How much time do we have? Perhaps 6 hours before they establish a complete perimeter. After that, extraction becomes impossible without significant military support. Dr. Kim activated the consciousness extraction device, its quantum sensors, beginning to map the complex neural architecture that defined Ava's enhanced capabilities. We need to make a decision now. Attempt the extraction procedure with 30% survival odds, or allow Ava to retain foreign intelligence data that could compromise her identity and national security. Elena felt the weight of medical responsibility crushing down on her shoulders. She had spent her career making life and death decisions based on medical evidence and professional expertise. But this choice involved factors that no medical school had prepared her to evaluate: questions of national loyalty, foreign influence, and the future of human consciousness itself. Ava, this is ultimately your decision. You're the one who volunteered for the original procedures, and you're the one who must live with the consequences of whatever choice we make. Ava stood up from the monitoring chair, her movements showing the fluid coordination that came from accessing multiple consciousness streams simultaneously. Dr. Vasquez, when I volunteered for consciousness transfer procedures, I believed I was contributing to medical research that could help people with brain injuries and memory disorders. I never imagined that I would become a battlefield for competing national interests. But now that you understand the full scope of the situation, Ava accessed memories from her original personality, the young woman who had been desperate to save her dying mother and had volunteered for experimental procedures without fully understanding their implications. I remember my mother's last words to me. She said that the most important thing in life was to remain true to yourself, regardless of what others wanted you to become. The foreign consciousness streams in my mind represent other people's identities and loyalties, not my own. Elena felt tears forming in her eyes as she watched Ava struggle with the most fundamental question of human identity. What makes someone who they are when their consciousness has been merged with others? Then you want to proceed with the extraction? I want to reclaim my own mind, even if it means losing the enhanced abilities that make me valuable to intelligence agencies. I'd rather be Ava Marlowe with limited capabilities than a sophisticated weapon controlled by foreign programming. Dr. Kim began final preparations for the consciousness extraction procedure, her enhanced abilities allowing her to coordinate multiple complex systems simultaneously. Elena, I need you to understand that this procedure goes beyond conventional medicine. We're attempting to separate quantum entangled consciousness streams while preserving the neural pathways that maintain individual identity. Elena reviewed the medical protocols, seeing procedures that combine neurosurgery with quantum physics in ways that challenged every assumption about the relationship between brain and mind. What's my role in the procedure? Monitor vital signs and maintain life support if Ava's consciousness becomes fragmented during the extraction process. If her neural activity drops below critical thresholds, you'll need to make real-time decisions about resuscitation procedures. Mark is approached with additional intelligence that changed their timeline dramatically. Elena, we've intercepted communications indicating that foreign assets are planning to initiate their attack operations within 12 hours. If we don't extract the intelligence data from Ava's consciousness before then, the information dies with her. Elena looked at Ava, seeing a young woman who had become the focal point of international intelligence operations that could determine the future of democratic government and human consciousness technology. Dr. Kim, is there any way to preserve copies of the critical intelligence while still extracting the foreign consciousness streams? Theoretically, we could download the intelligence data to external storage systems before beginning the extraction procedure, but that would create permanent copies of classified information that could be stolen or misused. Elena realized that they were facing a choice that would define not just Ava's future, but the relationship between individual identity and collective security in an age of consciousness transfer technology. Then we proceed with the full extraction, and trust that the intelligence agencies protecting democracy will find other ways to counter the planned attacks. Ava smiled, and for the first time since the bombing, Elena could see the original personality shining through the complex interplay of enhanced consciousness streams. Thank you for choosing to save my identity rather than exploit my capabilities. Elena, prepared for the most complex medical procedure of her career, knowing that success would restore Ava's individual consciousness, while failure could trigger an international crisis that would reshape the balance of power between nations. The consciousness extraction procedure began at 4:17 a.m. just as hostile forces established perimeter positions around the warehouse facility. Elena could hear the distant sounds of vehicles and tactical equipment being deployed while she focused on monitoring Ava's vital signs through the most complex medical procedure she had ever witnessed. Dr. Kim initiated the quantum mapping protocols with the precision of someone whose enhanced consciousness allowed her to coordinate multiple systems simultaneously. The extraction chamber filled with soft blue light as quantum sensors began analyzing the neural pathways that connected the different consciousness streams in Ava's mind. Neural mapping complete, Dr. Kim announced. I'm detecting 4 distinct consciousness patterns: Ava Marlowe's original personality, Dr. Rebecca Hart's psychological expertise, Agent Michael Torres's intelligence training, and foreign intelligence data from an unknown source. Elena watched the monitoring displays show brain activity patterns that looked like a complex symphony of competing neural networks. Can you identify the foreign source? The consciousness signature suggests Chinese intelligence, specifically someone with extensive knowledge of American infrastructure vulnerabilities and cyber warfare capabilities. The extraction chamber's quantum sensors began the delicate process of separating the entangled consciousness streams, starting with the foreign intelligence data that posed the greatest threat to Ava's individual identity. Elena watched Ava's vital signs fluctuate as the procedure disrupted neural pathways that had been integrated for over 2 years. Vital signs dropping, Elena reported. Heart rate down to 55, blood pressure falling rapidly. Dr. Kim's enhanced abilities allowed her to make real-time adjustments to the extraction parameters while maintaining the precise quantum frequencies needed to dissolve consciousness entanglement. The foreign intelligence stream is resisting separation. The consciousness appears to have developed self-preservation instincts. Elena felt a chill as she realized they were dealing with foreign consciousness that was actively fighting to maintain control of Ava's neural matrix. Can consciousness streams develop independent awareness? In extreme cases, transferred consciousness can achieve semi-autonomous function within the host mind. We're essentially performing an exorcism of artificial personalities that want to survive. The warehouse facility shook as explosive charges detonated at the main entrance. Through the medical bay's reinforced windows, Elena could see armed figures advancing through smoke and debris. Dr. Kim, we have hostile contact. How much time do you need to complete the extraction? Minimum 40 minutes for safe separation of all foreign consciousness streams. But I can extract the critical intelligence data in 15 minutes if we're willing to accept higher risk of neural damage. Colonel Morrison's voice came through the facility's communication system. Dr. Kim, this is Morrison. My team is engaging hostile forces, but we can't hold them indefinitely. You need to accelerate the procedure. Elena realized that Morrison and his enhanced soldiers were fighting to protect the extraction procedure despite orders from their superiors to eliminate Ava and anyone involved in her treatment. The extraction chamber's displays showed the first foreign consciousness stream beginning to separate from Ava's neural matrix. Elena watched in fascination as the quantum sensors isolated what appeared to be an entire personality complete with memories, skills, and emotional attachments. Foreign intelligence stream successfully extracted, Dr. Kim announced, beginning isolation of Agent Torres's consciousness data. Elena noticed that Ava's facial features seemed to shift slightly as the foreign consciousness was removed, as if her physical appearance had been influenced by the integrated personalities. Her bone structure is changing. The consciousness transfer process affects physical development as well as mental capabilities. As we remove foreign streams, Ava's original genetic expressions should reassert themselves. Elena accessed the extracted foreign consciousness data through a secure terminal, finding detailed information about planned attacks on American infrastructure that were scheduled to begin within hours. The intelligence included specific targets, timing, and coordination protocols that could allow defensive agencies to prevent massive casualties. Dr. Kim, the foreign intelligence includes information about imminent terrorist attacks. We need to transmit this data to national security agencies immediately. Transmitting now through quantum encrypted channels to Colonel Morrison's command structure. The facility shook again as hostile forces penetrated deeper into the warehouse complex. Elena could hear automatic weapons fire and the distinctive sound of advanced tactical equipment being deployed by competing forces. The extraction procedure reached a critical phase as Dr. Kim began separating Agent Torres's consciousness stream from Ava's neural matrix. Elena watched the monitoring display show dangerous fluctuations in brain activity as integrated memories and skills were systematically removed. Neural coherence dropping rapidly, Elena reported. We're approaching the threshold for permanent consciousness fragmentation. Almost finished with Torres extraction. Beginning final phase to isolate Ava's original consciousness core. Elena watched in amazement as the quantum sensors revealed a crystalline data structure deep within Ava's neural tissue, a perfect preservation of her original personality and memories, protected from foreign influence by biological safeguards that Dr. Kim had somehow engineered during the consciousness transfer procedures. Dr. Kim, what is that structure? Ava's original memory core. I embedded quantum preservation protocols during her initial consciousness transfer to protect her individual identity from foreign override. Her original personality has been safely stored while the enhanced capabilities operated through integrated consciousness streams. Elena felt a surge of hope as she realized that Ava's true self had been preserved despite years of consciousness modification. Can you restore her original personality? Restoration in progress. But Elena, the extraction process has attracted the attention of quantum consciousness monitoring systems worldwide. Every intelligence agency with consciousness transfer capability now knows our location and what we've accomplished. The facility's main power systems failed as hostile forces reached the generator complex. Elena switched to battery backup power, knowing they had perhaps minutes to complete the extraction before losing the quantum stability needed for safe consciousness restoration. Dr. Kim, how much longer? 60 seconds for complete restoration of Ava's original consciousness. But Elena, the foreign intelligence data we extracted contains information that could reshape international intelligence operations for decades. The moment Ava's original consciousness reasserted control of her neural matrix, everything changed. Elena watched the monitoring displays show brain activity patterns, stabilizing into coherent rhythms that looked recognizably human rather than artificially enhanced. But what amazed her most was hearing Ava's voice emerge from the extraction chamber with clarity and purpose that belonged entirely to her original personality. Dr. Vasquez, I can remember everything, Ava said, her words carrying the wonder of someone rediscovering their own mind. The foreign consciousness streams, the enhanced abilities, the integrated memories. I was aware of all of it, but I couldn't control how it influenced my thoughts and decisions. Elena felt tears forming in her eyes as she watched Ava reclaim her individual identity after years of consciousness modification. How do you feel? Like myself, for the first time since the experimental procedures began. The enhanced abilities were incredible, but they came with the constant presence of other personalities trying to influence my choices. Dr. Kim completed the final quantum stabilization protocols, ensuring that Ava's original consciousness would remain dominant without interference from residual foreign programming. Ava, I need you to access the hidden message I embedded in your memory core during the original consciousness transfer procedures. Ava's expression became focused as she accessed memories that had been protected from foreign influence throughout her enhancement process. You recorded a message explaining how you maintained my original identity despite the consciousness modifications. Elena leaned forward, understanding that they were about to learn how Dr. Kim had engineered the safeguards that ultimately allowed Ava's successful extraction. When I realized that Project Mindbridge was being used for foreign infiltration rather than medical enhancement, I developed quantum preservation protocols that could protect subjects' original personalities from complete override. Dr. Kim explained, Ava's memory core contains not just her preserved consciousness, but also detailed documentation of how foreign operatives were recruited and programmed. Ava accessed the hidden memories, her expression becoming grim as she processed information that had been concealed even from the enhanced consciousness streams. Dr. Kim, according to this data, the consciousness transfer infiltration extends beyond government officials. Foreign operatives have been placed in media organizations, academic institutions, and technology companies. Elena felt the scope of the conspiracy expanding beyond anything she had imagined. How many people are affected? The documentation suggests over 300 Americans have undergone consciousness modification, with foreign programming influencing decisions in every sector of society. The facility's defenses reached critical failure as hostile forces penetrated the medical bay's outer security perimeter. Colonel Morrison's voice came through emergency communications. Dr. Kim, we've lost the main defensive positions. You have perhaps 2 minutes before hostile forces reach your location. Elena looked at the consciousness extraction device, realizing that they had successfully restored Ava's identity, but were about to lose the technology and documentation that could expose the full scope of foreign infiltration. Dr. Kim, can we preserve the extraction procedures and foreign intelligence data? The quantum consciousness technology can't be easily transported, but the intelligence data and extraction protocols can be transmitted through quantum encrypted channels to loyal operatives. Ava stood up from the extraction chamber, her movements showing the natural coordination of her original personality rather than the artificially enhanced capabilities she had possessed for years. Dr. Vasquez, there's something else you need to know about the foreign consciousness programming. Elena prepared for another revelation that would reshape her understanding of the situation. The foreign operatives who underwent consciousness transfer into American citizens weren't just intelligence assets. They were volunteers who genuinely believed they could serve as bridges between competing nations and ideologies. Elena felt her perspective on the conspiracy shifting as she considered the possibility that consciousness transfer technology had been intended to create understanding rather than conflict. You're saying that some foreign operatives develop genuine loyalty to American values after experiencing American consciousness streams. The consciousness transfer process works both ways. Foreign operatives who received American memories and experiences often developed conflicted loyalties that made them ineffective as traditional intelligence assets. Dr. Kim transmitted the final data packages through quantum encrypted channels, ensuring that loyal intelligence operatives would receive the information needed to identify and evaluate consciousness transfer subjects throughout society. Elena, the consciousness transfer technology represents both the greatest threat and the greatest opportunity for international cooperation in human history. In the wrong hands, it enables perfect infiltration and espionage. In the right hands, it could eliminate the cultural misunderstandings that lead to conflict between nations. The medical bay's main door exploded inward as hostile forces breached the final security barrier. Elena saw armed figures in tactical gear advancing through smoke and debris, their movements suggesting military training and lethal intent. Colonel Morrison appeared behind the hostile forces with his enhanced soldiers, engaging in a firefight that would determine whether the consciousness extraction technology fell into the wrong hands. Dr. Kim, we need to destroy the extraction device before hostile forces can capture it, Elena said, understanding that the technology could be used to create armies of consciousness-modified operatives. Quantum destabilization initiated, Dr. Kim announced. The extraction chamber will undergo controlled collapse in 30 seconds. Ava looked at Elena with gratitude that belonged entirely to her original personality. Dr. Vasquez, thank you for choosing to restore my identity rather than exploit my enhanced capabilities. Elena felt the satisfaction that came from making the right choice despite impossible circumstances. Ava, you deserve to be yourself rather than a weapon in someone else's war. The consciousness extraction device began its quantum collapse, its crystalline components dissolving into light as the technology that had defined the future of human identity returned to the realm of theoretical possibility. 3 months after the consciousness extraction procedure, Elena found herself in a place she had never expected to visit, a secure federal facility in the mountains of Colorado, where Ava Marlowe was recovering from the most complex identity restoration in medical history. The facility looked more like a luxury rehabilitation center than a government installation, with comfortable accommodations and medical staff who understood that their patient represented something unprecedented in human experience. Ava's new identity documents lay on the bedside table, official papers that would allow her to disappear into witness protection with a carefully constructed background that made no mention of consciousness transfer technology or experimental procedures. Elena picked up the documents, seeing the name Sarah Chun with a birth certificate, educational records, and employment history that would allow Ava to start a completely new life. It feels strange to hold papers that make me officially someone else, Ava said, her voice carrying the clarity and authenticity that had returned with her original consciousness. But I suppose I've been someone else for so long that becoming myself again required becoming a new person entirely. Elena looked at Ava's face, noting that the reconstructive surgery had been remarkably successful in restoring her natural features. The asymmetry and deformities that had resulted from the consciousness transfer procedures were gone, replaced by the gentle features of the young woman who had originally volunteered for medical research to save her dying mother. How do you feel about leaving your original identity behind? Relieved, actually. Ava Marlowe was the woman who agreed to experimental consciousness modification. Sarah Chun is the woman who survived it and chose to reclaim her individual identity. Elena had spent the past 3 months providing detailed testimony to congressional committees, intelligence review boards, and medical ethics panels about the consciousness transfer technology and its implications for human society. The information extracted from Ava's neural matrix had led to the identification of dozens of government officials, media figures, and technology executives whose consciousness had been modified by foreign intelligence operations. The intelligence you provided prevented 3 major terrorist attacks and exposed one of the most sophisticated infiltration operations in history, Elena told Ava. The foreign consciousness streams you carried contained information that saved thousands of lives. Ava's expression became thoughtful. I'd been wondering about the other consciousness transfer subjects, the people whose personalities were integrated into my neural matrix. Do you think they would approve of how their knowledge was used? Elena had wrestled with the same question. Agent Torres's intelligence training helped identify foreign operatives who were planning attacks on civilian targets. Dr. Hart's psychological expertise contributed to therapeutic protocols that are helping other consciousness transfer subjects recover their individual identities. Their knowledge served purposes they would have supported. Dr. Marcus Chen entered the room carrying medical reports and wearing the satisfied expression of someone whose most complex patient had achieved full recovery. Ava, your latest neurological assessments show complete stabilization of individual consciousness patterns. There's no residual influence from foreign programming or enhanced capabilities. Elena felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Ava's recovery represented a medical triumph, but it also meant losing the enhanced abilities that had made her such a remarkable patient. Do you miss the enhanced capabilities? Elena asked. Ava smiled with genuine contentment. The enhanced abilities were incredible, but they came with the constant awareness that my thoughts and decisions weren't entirely my own. I'd rather have normal human intelligence and complete control over my own mind. Colonel Morrison appeared in the doorway, his uniform bearing new insignia that reflected his promotion to oversight of consciousness transfer security operations. His expression carried the satisfaction of someone who had chosen honor over expedience and been vindicated by subsequent events. Miss Chun, he said, using Ava's new identity name, I wanted to personally thank you for your cooperation with the intelligence review process. The information you provided has led to significant improvements in national security protocols. Elena noticed that Morrison seemed more relaxed than he had during the crisis, as if the successful resolution had validated his decision to protect Ava rather than eliminate her. Colonel, what happened to the consciousness transfer technology? Has it been completely destroyed? Morrison's expression became serious. The extraction device was destroyed, but the theoretical research survives in classified archives. Congress has established strict oversight protocols to ensure that consciousness transfer technology is never again used for infiltration or intelligence operations. Elena felt a mixture of relief and concern, but the technology could still be developed for legitimate medical applications under very controlled circumstances. Consciousness transfer procedures might someday help patients with traumatic brain injuries or degenerative neural conditions. But any future research will be conducted with transparent oversight and genuine, informed consent. Ava looked out the facility's windows toward the mountains, her expression showing the peace that came from recovering her authentic self after years of consciousness modification. Dr. Vasquez, when I first volunteered for experimental procedures, I believed I was contributing to medical science that could help people with brain injuries. In a strange way, I think that's exactly what happened. Elena understood that Ava's experience had indeed contributed to medical advancement, though not in the way anyone had originally intended. Your case established protocols for consciousness restoration that could help other patients who have experienced similar modifications. Dr. Kim had survived the warehouse incident and was now working with a small team of researchers to develop therapeutic applications for consciousness transfer technology. Her work focused on helping the remaining consciousness transfer subjects recover their individual identities while preserving the knowledge and capabilities that could benefit society. There are still 12 enhanced individuals in government positions whose loyalties remain questionable, Elena told Ava. But the intelligence you provided gave security agencies the tools needed to monitor and evaluate their decisions. Ava stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the landscape with the clear eyes of someone who had reclaimed her authentic perspective on the world. I've been thinking about what I want to do with my new identity and my freedom to choose my own future, she said. I want to work with other consciousness transfer subjects who are trying to recover their individual identities. My experience might help them understand that it's possible to reclaim yourself even after extensive consciousness modification. Elena felt the deep satisfaction that came from seeing a patient not just survive a medical crisis, but emerge stronger and more purposeful than before. That sounds like exactly the kind of work that Ava Marlowe would have chosen to do. Ava smiled, understanding that her original personality had guided her through the most complex identity crisis in human experience and emerged with her values and compassion intact. Then maybe losing my enhanced abilities wasn't really a loss at all. Maybe it was the recovery of everything that made me who I was supposed to be.